Danny and Dawn, the couple Debbie already told you about.
Well, Debbie asked us to tell you our story about how God called us to vocational ministry and to share with you what we perceive to be the cost of answering God's call.
We were very comfortable living right there in Ocoee, close to Windermere, and we're living close to my family, his family, and friends, and of course going to First Baptist Windermere with our two little boys.
That's right, that's right. Now, I had been questioning God's call to full-time vocational ministry for 10 plus years. Right out of college, I felt that God was calling me to ministry, but things kind of changed with that very quickly. I did go to pursue a seminary degree straight out of college, and I will say this, God humbled me greatly in my miserably failed attempt to complete a seminary degree. And I changed my attitude from a God is calling me to vocational ministry because He needs me. Wow, that's a joke. To a God couldn't possibly use me in vocational ministry type of an attitude. Listen, both of those attitudes are equally wrong. Sweet little old lady in our church family, her name is Almeda Johnson, approached me out of the clear blue and told me that she was going to pay my way to go to a church missionary trip to Choteau, Montana, to help a little tiny church out there finish putting up outdoor siding and indoor sheetrock prior to the upcoming very harsh winter months. Now, this is kind of a joke because if you knew me at the time, I barely knew how to hold a hammer. So I was more or less a gopher doing that. But I did gain a few carpentry skills at that point. But that's kind of a joke. If you knew me, I just don't have that much carpentry skill, or at least surely didn't at that time. Well, listen, in the middle of the week there, later in the week, we were eating a late morning lunch, an early lunch, late morning lunch, and Debbie was the one giving our devotion that morning. I was very intently listening to Debbie's devotion. She's so good at those. Debbie's wonderful. And I was kind of eating my sandwich, chewing my sandwich. I was leaning back in my chair, one of those little folding chairs, and I was leaning back on the back two legs, and Debbie asked the right question at the right time. And I can nearly quote her word for word. If you had enough faith, what would you be doing right now? If you had enough faith, what would you be doing right now? Well, the very moment that she asked that very straightforward question, I immediately dropped back on all four legs of my chair, and I almost spit my sandwich out as I shouted out, full-time ministry. And well, everybody in the room was shocked. I was shocked. I kind of, shrank back down and kind of leaned back in my chair a little bit and kind of got real quiet. And Debbie continued on with her devotion. Well, listen, immediately, Debbie, I'm sorry, but I've told you this. I don't remember anything else you said in that devotion beyond that, because God was speaking to me very specifically. And listen, I knew immediately, after 10 plus years of struggling to know if God was calling me to ministry, I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that He was. And I prayed very quietly, Lord, please don't let my disobedience harm Dawn and my kids. Let me be obedient. Don't let my disobedience harm Dawn and my kids, my family, my friends. Let me be obedient to your call. Help me to be obedient to fulfill your call in my life so that you will bless me and bless my wife and bless my children and my family and my friends. Well, after a 10 plus year long struggle to discern God's call to vocational ministry, I finally clearly understood this, that God did not call me because He needed me. Remember, God doesn't need any of us. He's independent of us. But the beauty of this is that He wants us. He loves us. Rather than feeling that God was calling me to ministry because He needed me, rather, even better, God called me because He wanted me. Yes. And what a blessing. God's calling is not because of what I bring to the table or because of what I have to offer Him. God called me to ministry because of who He is. Yeah. I remember telling Dawn on my way home from Orlando International, I told her, I said, I have something I need to tell you. We need to talk when we get home. And she said, okay. So we put the kids to bed early. that evening, and we went and sat on our love seat in our living room to talk. When I told Dawn that I was fully convinced that God had called us to vocational ministry, I want you to hear her response, and this is almost word for word. I've been waiting for you to say that for 10 years. Let's go.
And that is what I said. And it was hard, but God was speaking to me. It was amazing that when God was speaking to him over there in Montana, he was speaking to me in Florida. And I was like, okay, God, if this is really happening, we just bought this house. We just bought it.
Yep.
And we built it. And
we've been there for almost 7 years.
Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is everything that we dreamed of, right? Mm-hmm. The neighborhood, Absolutely. The area. Okay. And, okay. So I was like, okay, God, if this is really going to happen, you're going to tell him too, because we're married, and I'm not going to tell him what I'm thinking that you're telling me, because then I'll plant a seed in your head, and then you'll think, but if he tells me that, I'll know. And he said that. So when he said that, I'm like, let's go, because that was a confirmation. And I busted out crying. You busted out crying. It was great. But then we had to tell our family that we were moving. Long story short, the church enthusiastically embraced our decision. Our friends embraced our decision. Both of our families, okay, hey, that was hard. I had never moved away from Orlando, ever. That was hard for me. But my family enthusiastically embraced our decision, and God quickly sold our home. Put it up for sale. It sold, and we moved up to North Carolina so he could go to school full time at Southeastern Seminary. I thought of that seminary that would be closer, so in case I had to drive home, it would be close. And
it is a good seminary.
It was a good seminary.
Has wonderful
and
professors.
And it was good location, so I could drive home. And you served on. He became a ministry. You worked in the ministry for education and students at a church in South Carolina, right?
No, yes.
In North Carolina and in South Carolina. And then gave us lots of good relationships with so many people in every church that we attended.
That's right.
That was amazing. So we gained more friends and family. It feels like family. But Danny and I sent resumes. After this church in South Carolina, we felt like God was calling him. Danny and I both felt like God was calling him to be a pastor, not to ministry in education. So, of course, we were sending resumes out again to be, of course, my idea was to go back to Florida. And so we're sending him back to Florida, sending all the resumes back to Florida. And you go ahead and tell them about what happened after that.
Well, we sent a lot of resumes to Central Florida, a lot to Orlando, a lot in the region around, and as well as I think maybe a church or two in Alabama, some in Georgia, and whatnot. But nevertheless, to demonstrate God's great attention to detail in his calling and his specific call, God had for me a secretary there at the church whose father was a pastor in the county, in Rutherford County, North Carolina, where I now serve, where we live and where I serve, where Cane Creek Baptist is. But anyway, she asked for my resume one day, knowing that I was seeking God's call as a pastor. So I gave her my resume. She passed it along to her dad, who was, again, a pastor at a church here in Rutherford County, North Carolina. Well, he passed it to the barber in Rutherfordton, his barber in Rutherfordton, and the barber passed it to the head of the search committee at Little Cane Creek Baptist Church in Union Mills, North Carolina. What an amazing thing that happened. Just the way that God brought that resume to the right people at the right time. Understand this. We had never, ever heard of such a place. Never heard of Rutherfordton or Rutherford County or Forest City or Spindale or any of those places. We just weren't familiar with it.
And we never set sent a resume
Yeah,
there.
we never sent any resumes
Right.
there or anywhere near.
Right.
But that one resume that was requested by our secretary's father is just an amazing thing that it would make it to Cane Creek like it did. But listen, we would have never come to Rutherford County of our own search or own effort because, to be quite honest, we never heard of the place. And I've never been here, and it was just not somewhere we would just pick up and send a resume necessarily. Again, making a long story short, I just completed 15 years as the pastor of this wonderful family of believers
Yes.
at Cane Creek Baptist Church. Celebrated my 15-year anniversary just 3 days ago on November 1st. Today is November the 3rd. And on November 1st was my 15-year anniversary.
It's amazing.
Which is totally amazing. I love this church, and I hope that we have 15 more years plus at this church. We love the people there, love the ministry that's here.
It went by very
It's
fast.
gone by extremely fast.
Yeah, and listen, God has a purpose for everything, even the details. He, our youngest son, Austin, he married his Julia, which is she's a pastor's daughter here locally.
Yes, yes.
And
by the way, I met her. Julia's dad was one of the first pastors that I met upon moving to this county.
Yeah, and who was to know that our son was going to be marrying her?
Yeah,
and amazing. We love her.
Yes.
And then our oldest son, Trey, met and married Hannah. And Hannah and her family joined Cane Creek Baptist, right? So he met his wife. They weren't even dating when they were youth group. They married after the fact, but
Yes.
we love Hannah.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's a blessing in our lives.
Yeah, what an awesome thing. These beautiful girls would not be our daughters-in-law.
I call them daughter-in-loves.
Our daughters-in-laws. If we had not obeyed God's call and followed His lead to this little church,
Right.
We don't know the specifics of how God will use us tomorrow. But I'll tell you this: we remain very content to continue serving along with the faithful members, our church family at Cane Creek, as long as God would have us to be here, until He would pick us up and lead us elsewhere.
Right.
We're content to serve here in so many ways. What a blessing to be at a church for 15 years in a place where you'd never heard of before. God is wonderful at that. And listen, God is so very good, and this is the very best advice that I can give you. Trust God and obey Him when He calls you to serve Him. God provides everything that we need when we follow His lead and when we obey His call. There is absolutely no regret. I have no regrets. Dawn doesn't.
I don't.
We have no regrets in pursuing our call to Cane Creek Baptist. So understand this: there's absolutely no regret in pursuing whatever God calls you to do. Debbie asked us to consider the cost, and this is what I'm going to say. First of all, it didn't cost, honestly, it didn't cost us anything. We did have to leave a beautiful home.
Yeah.
But more importantly, we left a bunch of family that we love so very much in the Central Florida area, in the Orlando area. And we left friends that we love so very much in Orlando. Friends that are like family to us. And we left a church, First Baptist Windermere at the time, is what it was called.
Yeah.
I know y'all changed your name just recently, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But we left a church and significant ministry that we were doing there as volunteers. And I led the young singles married couples class. I just worked with the young singles for a while.
Yeah.
Then became the Sunday school teacher
For young
marrieds. And what an awesome privilege. Again, many of those couples
we still keep in touch with.
They're still close and wonderful
thanks
friends.
Thanks to Facebook.
Yes.
Yes.
But what is the cost? Let me put it to you this way. We sometimes think, what does it cost us to go? Sometimes you have to uproot yourselves and move to a different place. It's so many things are involved in a call, but this is the cost that we didn't have to pay. And I think this is equally important. remember, both of our boys met who we believe to be the perfect girls for them.
Yes.
Remember my prayer as soon as Debbie said that, and as soon as I realized I was called to ministry, I asked God, Lord, please give me obedience. Please don't let my disobedience of refusing a call, please don't let that be harmful to my family, to my wife, my kids, my family, my friends, my church even. But Lord, let me be obedient so that we will not have to pay, all those folks will not have to pay the cost of disobeying. There is a cost for sure to disobeying God. God blesses you, and as He's blessed us when you follow a call to ministry. When He calls and you go, just as when He called we went, God blesses you. Whatever you think it's going to cost you to follow God's call, I want you to understand this. God provides abundantly and well beyond anything that you could imagine to help you to pursue His call. Where God calls, He provides when we humbly submit ourselves to His good will. So my encouragement is this: trust Him and follow Him today.
And just one more thing. God wants to bless us, and He loves us. So He wants the best for us. So why don't we just follow Him?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I hope this helps you today. I hope this encourages you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us go
Love you,
along
Debbie
here.
and Randy.
Debbie, we love you. Our 5-minute video has turned into 16 and a half. But hopefully this will be worth hearing.
It's impossible.
And, it's very much impossible. God did too much with us.
Yeah.
And I think if we had left out some of these details, perhaps you wouldn't experience God's moving in our lives as y'all are presently experiencing God. By the way, we went through that study at First Baptist Windermere, and what a privilege it was to do that. I think it was the second time that we had gone through it. And you have a wonderful church family there in Windermere, and I want you to serve there and be a part of that church. Make a difference in that ministry. Serve your family at home. Serve your spouse. Serve your kids. Serve your family. Serve your friends. But serve through the church as God leads you. But wherever God leads you, do yourself a favor and all who are around you. But obey Him, and obey Him quickly. Where God calls, He provides. And He is such a wonderful, good God. We love y'all. Don't know you, but we love you. Our fellow believers back in Windermere. And listen, thank you, Debbie, for this opportunity. We love you. Thank you for your part in helping to bring us to 15 years at this wonderful little church. We love y'all. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.